if we, for example, just rely on Hollywood movies to explain to us what financial services or what the stock markets are all about, we get the impression that it all sort of centers around the sort of Wolf of Wall Street type culture. And you, as a professional recruiter in this field, and I, as a professional financial planner in this field, know that that couldn't be further from the truth, right? And so I guess it goes back to this point of, if there's visibility of financial planning as a profession via professionals doing financial literacy sessions around the country, or producing content and putting it out there on social media or YouTube or what have it, we're going to see a whole bunch of different types of people of different social economic backgrounds, with different accents, with different niches, talking about the good that financial planning can do.
Welcome to another episode of Talk FS. Talk FS is designed for professionals entering or in the financial services industry, such as financial advisors, mortgage advisors, power planners, and business owners. Talk FS aims to offer insights and guidance by interviewing key individuals from the industry, exploring their career paths, challenges, and successes. Today, I'm joined by Amyr Rocha Lima, a chartered financial planner, coach, and respected voice within the financial services profession. Amyr has built an impressive career founded on expertise, empathy, and leadership. He's not only known for his work with clients, but also for his contributions to elevating the profession through coaching, mentoring, and public speaking, including his appearances on the radio and the TEDx stage. In this episode, we'll be exploring the growth and awareness of the financial services profession and Amyr's experiences in the media and what he's learned from them. Amyr, thank you for joining me today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for the kind introduction. That's much appreciated.
No problem at all. So I always like to sort of start at the origin, so to speak. So if you don't mind, don't worry about going into too much depth here, but what led you to financial services out of interest?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I fell into the financial services sector, let alone the financial planning profession, completely by accident. And so I'm originally from the Midwest of Brazil. On my father's side of the family, my grandfather ran a cattle ranch for his whole life, his own cattle ranch. So you can imagine that stock markets, bonds, stocks, investments, financial planning just wasn't part of my lingo growing up. Maybe commodities markets, sort of, I had an idea of how that sort of worked, but this whole business of a financial services sector, as we see it here in England, in the UK, I wasn't aware of that, even from an opportunity of entering it as a sort of a professional one day. And so my eyes really were open to it. So after I moved over to England to come here to study. After my studies, I was talking to a friend of mine, just one of those conversations over a beer, sort of saying, hey, Leo, I'm just not really sure what to do with my life. I don't know really what to go into as a career. Anyway, just coincidentally, he ran the coffee shop at the time inside the AXA building in Bristol. And he said to me, hey, why don't you hand over your CV? And, we'll see what we can do. And honestly, I misunderstood him when I said it. I remember this vividly. I said, look, mate, no offense. I've sort of done the gigs in coffee shops before. That's not what I'm looking for. He said, no, don't be silly. I'm talking about, I'll hand your CV to the HR people that go to have a coffee because they're always there. We know them. And I know AXA's hiring. And I said, oh, okay. So I put a CV together and obviously did my research around AXA, had no idea about this company. Found out that they were this multinational insurer and asset manager, one of the biggest on earth at the time. And they did everything from art insurance to asset management, right? And everything in between. And I just thought, wow, this is really interesting. And so went through the interview process, went through the sort of selection, aptitude tests and everything else, and ended up being hired and placed in the essentially AXA Wealth, the unit that dealt with IFAs. And that essentially sold and serviced the AXA products to the IFA market in the UK. And that's when I sort of discovered this business of financial planning as even a thing, and how successful professionals end up meeting with advisors, how advisors interact with product providers, and how that all can be a virtuous circle for people all around the country. And then I just got fascinated by it, really, Ryan. And from there, it was one of those where, again, because of the size of AXA, they're always looking to try to find talent even internally and grow talent internally. And so I became aware of this professional qualification path that sat right alongside a sort of a professional development path. And so I just started doing that. There were guys and girls that I looked up to that were one role or two roles ahead of me or doing something slightly different. And I thought, wow, got to meet them, got to speak with them. Hey, how did you get to this place? What is it that you need to do what you do? And then sort of found out about the certificate in financial planning, then the diploma in financial planning, then kept going on all the way to chartered. And so, as they say, from there, I got recruited into actually becoming a financial planner eventually from a client of mine at the time. And the rest is history, as they say.
How interesting. And I'd love to get your take on the awareness of the industry, because you've mentioned there that you had no idea that it even existed. And it wasn't really until a friend happened to kind of make some unique introduction there. The industry over the years has actually got smaller, particularly post RDR. So potentially the awareness is even harder now. Do you think it's known enough? And if so, what could the industry be doing about it potentially?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Ryan. And so I think there's a couple of different angles from which we can analyze this. So I was in a meeting yesterday with the CEO of the CISI, Tracy Vegro, and she was saying to me that she's really impressed about the fact that the Treasury now are talking about financial planning as something that's important and something that the population at large are becoming and should become more and more aware of. Okay, so you can see now that financial planning as a thing is gaining ground at government level, right? Which is super important. The government, I think, realize that the UK can benefit from all of us better understanding financial planning and perhaps having better access to financial planning in one shape or form, okay? Or in the many shapes and forms that financial planning exists. So that's at that level there. That's excellent, positive news. In my books, that's a big green tick.
Yeah.
On the other side, what we see is something that you're mentioning, I think, is still at, let's say, for example, the university level. I don't feel financial planning has as much traction as a profession to aspire to, such as, for example, accountancy does. And I think that's fair. Accountancy is a much more long-standing profession as just as a thing for people to be aware of. And so I think that is fair, but it shows that we have a lot of work to do. And so now let's talk about we have a lot more work to do. Who's the we, right? I don't think as a profession, we can just rely on government on their own to make people more aware of financial planning and the need for financial planning. I also don't think that we can just hand that baton over to the professional bodies that we're part of and expect them on their own to go and raise the awareness that's needed for financial planning. I think we need to make sure that we're working with government. I think we need to make sure that we're working with the sort of big influencers in the financial services space. And by that, I'm talking about the likes of Martin Lewis, right? So he also can be a champion of financial planning as something people should be aware of. I definitely think we need to work with our professional bodies, but I think that's down to us as the professionals within this sector. All of us can find a bit more time in our diaries, in our lives, to contribute to the professional bodies that we're part of and the financial literacy or financial awareness campaigns that they run. And that if all of us just did a little bit more all around the country, all those little ripples, I really believe would become a much bigger wave. And even from a selfish point of view, Ryan, that would help everyone, right? Because it would increase the size of the cake. In other words, more grads would become aware of financial planning as a profession. We would attract more talent wanting to come into the industry. More people would become aware of financial planning as something that's important to engage with and an idea worth engaging with. And so potentially more prospects would be calling financial planning practices to be able to work with them and in their situation. I just think it grows the cake for everyone, right? But we can't rely on just one of those spokes in that machine being able to solve this because it's a slow burn, right? People need to become aware of this as a profession, if that's what they're looking for, or aware of financial planning as an idea worth engaging with. They need to do some research. They need to perhaps be challenged by talks or by Martin Lewis doing a piece on TV or by something they read because it's financial planning week and now they are aware of financial planning in a way that perhaps they weren't before, or their kids have a financial literacy session at school and their kids come back home and mention about this pensions thing or this insurance thing. And suddenly that conversation starts creating a curiosity that prompts people to take action and say, hey, if I were to have a conversation with somebody, who would that be with? And like I said, be it from looking at this as a career, or looking at this as something that one might need in one's life to be able to help them think about, say, for example, retirement or something along those lines, right? So it's a slow burn, but we've got to start somewhere. And I think there's a lot of good work happening already. We can talk about some of those things here, but there needs to be more done. But it's more by, I think, those different facets of the machine, right? Government have their role to play. Professional bodies like the CISI have their role to play. And I think us as professional financial planners, we have a role to play. And if we all play our role, we can all do a little bit. And all those little bits, I think, become one big thing that is, I think, a benefit to society as a whole.
It's such an interesting set of points you make there. And I think for me, the real message I'm taking away is that twofold benefit. If we can increase the education on financial planning as an idea, whether that's, like you said, people understand, a bit more about pensions, or even just the fundamental spend less than you earn sort of philosophy, that may lead them into, I like that idea. How can I help more people do that? And that leads them into potentially entering the profession. Or ultimately, it just means if whatever profession they go on to, hopefully they're a little bit more equipped and they might become a really good quality client down the line when they're at a point to engage with a financial advisor or a financial coach, which is a growing area of the market as well. So that's the message I take away. And it's nice that there's a belief that the Treasury is starting to make progress and inroads with that. And like you say, it's such a massive ship that needs turning round. There is going to be a bit of a delay there. I do wonder, because financial services can be known for a bit of its old school approach that it's had. Do you think with the adoption in technology that we're seeing from some businesses in the profession, that might help make the parts of the industry more desirable to that new wave and that new potential generation coming through?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Ryan. And, I must admit, it's something that was brought to my attention in a way that I didn't expect a number of years ago, right? I think what you're referring to there is essentially what we need is more people of all shapes and sizes and socioeconomic backgrounds and everything else to look at financial services as a sector and perhaps financial planning as a profession as something that also is inclusive of them and isn't excluding them. And when you mentioned the word old school, the way I read that is that if we, for example, just rely on Hollywood movies to explain to us what financial services or what the stock markets are all about, we get the impression that it all sort of centers around the sort of Wolf of Wall Street type culture. And you, as a professional recruiter in this field, and I, as a professional financial planner in this field, know that that couldn't be further from the truth, right? And so I guess it goes back to this point of, if there's visibility of financial planning as a profession via professionals doing financial literacy sessions around the country, or producing content and putting it out there on social media or YouTube or what have it, we're going to see a whole bunch of different types of people of different social economic backgrounds, with different accents, with different niches, talking about the good that financial planning can do. And also what you're going to have is a lot of people from different backgrounds, from different parts of the country, from different accents, watching those different people produce that content and go, that's interesting. Maybe I've heard this 2 or 3 times before, but for whatever reason, the way the message landed to me, it just didn't work. It might have been the leaflet from my bank that said, do you have life insurance? And I've never bothered to look at it. The bank isn't doing something wrong. It just didn't link. And then suddenly they see someone, and again, I'm exaggerating a point here, but they see someone with a weird name, or with the same color skin as them, or from the same part of the country as them with that same sort of accent. saying the same thing, and perhaps in a more dynamic way or a calmer way or with cartoons or with whatever it is. And they go, geez, I've never thought about it like this before. I'm aware of it. I know I should do something along those lines, but for some reason, I've never seen it like this before. And suddenly they, whoever they are, I think can relate to the message and the importance of the thing that's being said. And so again, going back to your point, there's two ways of approaching this. We can somehow artificially try to create an environment where we're lowering the standards and lowering the bar. I don't think that serves anyone. And so what we want to do is increase standards, increase professionalism, and also increase the bar, but not by making things artificially difficult for anyone, either the people trying to understand it because it's full of jargon, or the people producing it because there's so much regulation, they just don't feel comfortable in ever producing any piece of content ever. Doesn't help either, right? What we need is just more variety of professionals actually producing content or being out there in person, delivering a message that gets people understanding this financial planning thing is something worth engaging with. And that's how we do it. And this is just my take. And unfortunately, I guess I just need to be really clear. My take is a long burn, right? We need to start doing it today. And then we need to keep doing it and getting more and more people doing it. That's basically it. And then through time, I think, as I said, the pie increases for everyone. And we're in a very healthy profession, attracting talent as other professions attract talent, and serving people of many different sizes and needs and economic situations, because there are enough firms doing enough different things in a profitable manner to be able to cater for society's requirements in what we do. So that's the big vision, right? I would love to think that we can progressively work towards a place where everyone in the UK, and I'm going to sort of probably expand that even further, everyone around the world felt they knew the pathway, they knew the channel to be able to get financial planning properly delivered to them, relevant to them, and delivered in a professional way, in an ethical way, whenever they stumbled upon a milestone in their life that required that sort of planning. That would be a fantastic place to live in.
I love your take on it, and I definitely agree with a lot of the points you're making there. Now, one of the elements you're saying is, getting messages out there. Now, for you, I mentioned it in the intro, you were able to stand up on the TEDx stage and have, a fantastic opportunity to deliver a message. I'd love to know, on you as a personal level, how that felt going into it. That there must be an element of being daunted by what was in front of you, I guess.
Yeah, huge. So I'm not a professional speaker by any means, and obviously just public speaking doesn't come naturally to me. And so the culmination of this idea I'm sharing with you has been a TEDx talk on financial planning, and also giving people a framework to think about money so that they're conscious about money and thinking about what it takes to work your way towards perhaps being ready for retirement. Okay. Now, imagine this, Ryan. You've got 14 minutes to be able to deliver that message. In the TEDx Kingston upon Thames, which I was part of, there's 650 people in a theater. And as you can imagine, if you're self-selecting to buy a ticket for TEDx, you're not sort of the average person. You're there expecting content that is going to challenge your way of thinking. That is why you are going to an event like that. So the pressure was on, right? And I knew this challenge was something I wanted to tackle because I knew it was something that could be tackled. Financial planning can be something people go to the edge of their chair and think, my God, and get emotional about, and can laugh and can feel sad about, and can go, never thought of it like that. I know that that's true because I do this with clients in our meeting room week in, week out. So the challenge was to just be able to tell that story in a 15-minute, 14-minute constrained time window without the one-to-one. So it was one to many, and knowing that it's one to many, many more because this thing gets put up on the TEDx YouTube channel after all. And so that was the challenge. Where did that start though? Because daunting, absolutely, you were right. But over 10 years ago, this TEDx talk essentially started without me even knowing that I was ever going to be on a TEDx stage, because at the time I was volunteering with the PFS financial literacy program, and I just put my hand up to go to local schools, career fairs, or sort of financial literacy sessions, and just deliver the material that the PFS would make available to their members to go and deliver. So those initial reps of doing that, then afterwards serving in the financial planning committee at the CISI, then becoming the chair of the committee at the CISI, then eventually joining the board of the CISI as a trustee, and all of the sort of public speaking, financial literacy sessions and everything that goes with that. All of those were reps, essentially, to get to a point where you're then going onto a stage with 650 pretty eager minds expecting you to give them an idea worth engaging with. That's what the TEDx the vision is all about. And so there was a lot of reps before I got there, even if I wasn't consciously doing those reps along the way, thinking of TEDx being the end goal, right? But that's how life goes. You've got to play games in which you're winning no matter what. And so what I mean by that is if you have a hard time with public speaking today and you want to start really working that sort of public speaking muscle, well, the first port of call is go to your professional body of choice and find the financial literacy material they have available and start contacting local schools, which are dying for that sort of support anyway, local chamber of commerce, whatever it is, and book, in for you to deliver sessions along those lines. Now, you're playing a game that you're going to win no matter what, because one, you're going to learn the material. So even if you still sort of think, oh my God, I don't know if this is for me, I'm nervous, you know that you're going to deliver a material that, left to their own devices, the people listening to you are probably going to have a harder time digesting because it's probably not their field. So that's number one. You're going to obviously start working that public speaking muscle, but you're also going to be actually helping people. And so even if you don't end up doing this any further, you've played a game that you won no matter what. You won because, one, you fulfilled your objective of trying it out. But whilst doing that, you're improving the lives of other people. And so maybe you do like it and you think, gosh, I get some fulfillment out of this. I get to do this. Well, great, do more of it then. And maybe, Ryan, that leads to you going, gosh, I like this so much. I wondered if I could make my own sort of evergreen version of this and start creating it on LinkedIn or on YouTube or whatever it might be. And so you can see what I'm saying here. Again, it might be that you want to increase your personal brand by doing that. Well, great. You're again playing a game that you're winning no matter what, right? Because you're putting the videos out there. As long as you're doing it professionally and ethically, you're actually helping people that are going to watch this. And at the same time, you're getting the reps in to improve your public speaking. So I'm a big fan of this idea of just play good games, win good prizes, and especially these games where you're winning no matter what, right? Because you are actually doing something that is of genuine value to society, whilst also doing something for you. In this case, for example, doing those reps to keep working on that public speaking muscle. So that would be my sort of my take on that. It was daunting. I definitely felt a lot of responsibility, but it was a challenge that I felt was worth taking on because I knew it could be done. I just knew it could be done because financial planning is interesting. It doesn't need to be boring and full of jargon and full of products and sort of full of tax tables. We get there when we get there, right? Before then, it needs to be an idea that people think is worth engaging with, right? An idea that's worth sitting down and spending some time and money on to work with a professional that's going to help you figure stuff out. In other words, put the meaning that you have or want to have in your life with the money that you have and are accumulating, and put those two things together so that that financial plan comes to life. And money decisions link with the things that are important to you. The things that are important to you are supported by the finances to help you do them. That's the beauty of what we do.
It's such a powerful message. And obviously our audience on our podcast will consist of a lot of financial advisors. And really, I think the message, if I was a financial advisor listening to this episode today, is you've obviously mentioned about, that TEDx is kind of a nice pinnacle to get to, but you're not done yet. You're still going on and on. But actually, you as financial advisors probably talk about compound interest on a daily basis to clients about, we don't have to start with big injections if we play that long game, particularly when we're thinking about retirement planning or generational planning as well. And so it is those reps. It's the compound interest of showing up, like you said. And obviously that could happen on a personal level, but also we've talked earlier on in this conversation about the impact it would have on the profession if everyone could do their small piece, and the compound interest of that together would be fantastic. So I definitely think if anyone's listening and liking the idea of, oh, this could be good, there's some really powerful tips you've shared there of picking up that financial literacy, starting off with the schools. I know I do some work with our schools, and you're totally right. They are crying out for subject matter experts to come in and educate the kids in the schools about different things, about exploring different options, just to increase awareness. And I know some people who do it regularly and get such a buzz from it. And actually, I know some financial advisors who've gone into colleges, delivered presentations, and then a year down the line, their parent has contacted them to say, hey, you did a talk to my child at school. I would like to talk to you about my pension. And so in a weird way, it's generated clients as well, which gives you that little bit of payoff for the time and energy put in, which ultimately you might feel like it has £0 return on investment.
Yeah. And, what's fascinating, Ryan, about what you said is, look, I've ran financial literacy sessions in fairly deprived schools, state schools in Hounslow, all the way up to Eton College and everything in between. And I can tell you, the other thing you gain from this is an understanding of what is in the culture around financial services, around money, around investments at, say, for example, the A-level student stage in all of those different environments. And weirdly, it wasn't that different, because don't forget, information has disseminated in a way that's very democratic, good and bad with the smartphone, but it has, and with the internet. And so you're getting these kids in Hounslow talking about crypto being a golden ticket. You're also getting these kids at Eton talking about crypto being the golden ticket. Now, you might say, well, Amyr, there's probably a social safety net behind one of those populations versus the other that's slightly different. Fair enough. I'm not here to argue that. But I'm sort of saying it would be easy, I guess, as a professional financial planner to hear crypto and see these meme tokens and things and just completely dismiss it. And you should dismiss all of that from a point of view of not advising clients to do that. That's absolutely fair. But what we have to have a notion of as professionals living, breathing, and delivering financial planning is what is happening in the culture. How is this being discussed? What is the thing that's anchoring people clicking so much on these sort of things on the internet and wanting to know more about and putting money and losing money on these? Why? You get a really good feeling about that when you mingle with this population of A-level students, university students, and you start understanding, man, that's what they're reading. That's what they're consuming to get to this mindset. And it helps. It definitely helped me in terms of being very patient about framing this with clients who not in and of themselves are saying to me, I want to do this, but might be saying, hey, Amyr, my son reads maths at Durham. Fairly clever kid, right? He's saying we should go into crypto. What do you think? Now, I can choose here. Do I want to be a professional about this, or do I want to just boldly dismiss this idea and say, oh, that's completely idiotic? Well, I definitely don't want to take that second route. It's just not me. I want to have a understanding as to what's the question behind the question here. It's like, oh, that's interesting. So tell me more. Like, what are your thoughts about it? Because it's not about crypto at that point, right? It's got to be about something else. It's got about maybe is it about involving his son who's doing maths at Durham into our world? Maybe it's about having a good argument to help the parent, help the son not go wrongly into this and maybe consider it in a different way. Be curious, right, about it. But I only have that patience around wanting to know more about the question behind the question because of those financial literacy sessions that gave me a feeling about why is it that this section of the population, why is it that they're thinking about and going into this subject so much, and how that's filtering back up to parents and grandparents, etc. So even from a selfish point of view, Ryan, can you see there it improves you as a professional? Again, it's a game that you win no matter what. You win as becoming a better professional, as getting more of an understanding of what's going out there in the culture, actually helping people perhaps see a different way, or at least have a framework that sits alongside the current framework so they can make maybe more informed decisions. And even gathering MI info that helps you have other conversations with clients and children of clients eventually as well, which is a massive value add.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to just change gear on the conversation if we don't mind, because I think we've covered that fantastically, and I'm sure we could carry on talking about that for a fair bit more time. But I'd love to move the conversation on to about the technology piece. Obviously, AI is a massive buzzword in the world, but I think when we talk about technology, it doesn't have to exclusively be about AI, because there's been some real development, and the technology has come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years, really. And I know you're very forward about making use of it, and you're enabling your business to leverage it where possible. So I'd love to get your take on technology. And I know that's a very broad question, and take it where you want.
Yeah, so it's a really good point, Ryan. So I guess let's just start at the sort of 30,000 foot view, and then you can pull the thread wherever you want, right? But when I set out to start Strategic Wealth Partners, I'm very fortunate, of course, that my business partner, Ian, is very experienced when it comes to running the operations of a financial planning firm, of a successful and a big national financial planning firm. And therefore, he's seen what works and what doesn't, and processes that one needs to be more mindful of and more guarded, and processes that one can be a little bit more creative with, and how that all filters into the actual financial planning team within the business, delivering a service that is of value to clients. And so we started from the beginning by being essentially a tech-enabled, forward-looking financial planning practice. Right? I would say that from a financial planning perspective, we're what I call a high-end vanilla firm, right? So we do the bread and butter stuff, the vanilla stuff very well with great service to a high level, to a high standard. And then what we want technology to do is enable the client experience to be easy, to be frictionless where possible, and to be informative. And so there's two options that we had there. One is to get a bunch of different software providers and sticky tape them into our processes, as a lot of financial planners and financial planning practice owners that are listening to the show now are probably still doing. Or we could actually build that technology ecosystem ourselves. And so that's exactly what we have. So we, at Strategic Wealth Partners, we have the Strategic Wealth portal. And so clients have one login to their portal account, and that's protected with two-factor authentication. And in that portal, they essentially have a view of their financial life and financial plan, just like the view that we as their financial planners have as well. So we're both sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. We're both looking at that one source of truth, right? And so what that enables us to do is not just report on performance and report on how that performance is still or not, as the case may be, funding their financial plan, but we can actually show them their financial plan because we've integrated cash flow planning into that. We can message each other securely because we've got secure messaging in there. We can exchange documentation securely because we've got secure document storage. We can actually do straight through processing with our platforms because we actually link up straight to the platform's API. So inside our portal, our Strategic Wealth portal, we can do straight through processing of business straight with the platform. And so, yes, it creates efficiencies for our business, both in terms of compliance efficiencies, because we're mindful of things being in one place and we can audit everything in one place. And also it creates process and workflow efficiencies because, again, we can set those workflows on a system and everybody follows and sings from that hymn sheet internally too. But it also creates a client experience that the feedback we get is that it's a breath of fresh air, because finally they're getting to see what their money is doing, what their investments are doing, how that links to their financial plan. They communicate with us. They exchange secure documentation with us all in the same place. Right. And so it's like, that's really great compared to the place I was at before where I had 3 different logins and then this one here didn't work and I needed to contact IT to help and the experience just wasn't great. So I think, Ryan, that clients' expectations of technology is that it's secure, it's robust, but that it's easy to deal with. It's intuitive and that it gives them the things they need to be able to make those informed decisions as and when they need to make them. That's the North Star for the experience we want to deliver to the client. And then the experience that we want to deliver to our firm and our growing firm as it is that we've got some solid tracks for the business train to run on, right? Advice, remuneration, reconciliation, be that file checking for our compliance officer, everything can be just put in place with checklists and workflows that mean that as and when that is needed, you can just go there and the thing is there, connected to the case that was done, the application form that was done, the messages that was sent. It's there for you to check, sign off, move on to the next. And so technology for me is all about that, which is just now pulling this point a bit further. And I'm keen to hear how you're doing this in your business. But for us, hopefully you notice there that what we're not saying is that with technology is at a point where we're necessarily replacing people. And so I think we're being more efficient with our team. And also we can upskill our team to use the tools to be more efficient themselves and therefore more valuable to the business too. But I still think that the business of financial planning, especially when it comes to the contact with the client, I think that is a role that requires empathy and it requires a human that can be there present for their client, knowing that they've got technology, be it with AI or be it just with systems and processes in place to essentially augment their ability of being more human with clients, rather than spending all their time sticky taping systems and sticky taping processes together to try to deliver this value add service to the people they serve.
It's very, very interesting. And I love that you've come at that from both angles of the client experience. And I was preparing a question in my head, but then you went on to the other side, the other side of the coin, which is fantastic, to then how does it affect the operator as well? And so making that, smoother, more enjoyable for the operator is fantastic, because that means they're in a better, happier place, which goes back again to the client experience is only going to be a positive thing. And you asked there for, my take on it. And we as a business have gone through that journey ourselves in the last 6 months. And the one phrase you mentioned there, and I think businesses and individuals really need to identify this, is the single source of truth. Now, to me, when I entered this journey reviewing our technology, I didn't really understand what single source of truth necessarily meant. And I'd recommend you go off and do your own research to understand it to yours, because I'm no expert on it. But having a place now for us as a business where everything is in the same system has massively transformed our business for the better. And actually one of the indirect benefits of it, and it's a bit strange, is we're now in a place where we can spend more time with the people we can't help. So there is massive productivity gain for us. We're able to make more introductions. We're able to go on a deeper level with those introductions. We're able to know where we're at any point. And if we've got holidays, someone can quickly pick things up, and that's fantastic. And there's a lot of obvious benefits. But actually a lot of what I'm saying to my team is, I want you to make use of your time that you've been given back to help people more that you can't help right now. And so for us in a recruitment perspective is, we think you're a fantastic candidate. We would love to help you, but sadly, we don't have a job available for you right now. It's very tempting when you're in a very demanding role and recruitment's always so busy to go, right, move on to the next person who I can help. And I'm saying to the guys, spend a bit more time with them, extend your conversation, follow up with an email to them, diarize to catch up with them, because we take a lot of enjoyment from helping people. And that should also be the people we can't help right now. But if we play that long game, like you've mentioned on a number of occasions, we should, all being well, stand to gain from it. And if it's not from a remuneration perspective, it's from an enjoyment perspective. And again, that's a full circle moment, because you will then help people more. So I think financial planners can also do the same. There's a very big movement in the industry right now of having to sadly set a minimum threshold. And that minimum threshold sadly is creeping up because of the cost of running a business and what's profitable. I would love also to see potentially some firms be able to offer some sort of help to those that sit outside of their minimums, whether it's asset level or whether it's profile or whatever it is. Just because then you might do a little good deed for yourself that may come good in the long run.
It's huge. And it goes back to the top of this conversation when we were talking about giving back. You might be able, a business owner who's listening to this might think, well, come on, Ryan, I'm a small business owner. It's me as the financial planner and owner, and maybe I've got one assistant and that's basically it. I outsource some power planning. And it's like, great, fantastic. In fact, the industry and as a whole, in fact, many industries in the UK, let alone this financial services industry and the financial planning profession within it, is filled with amazing small firms dotted all around the country that, maybe feel overwhelmed with being able to think, well, how can I help? I haven't got the bandwidth and I need to run a profitable business. After all, I've got my family to support, and my clients to support. I need to be around for them. It's great. But there's still a way of doing exactly what Ryan is describing, right? And so, business processes, technology, perhaps even seeking to partner with a firm that offers that so you can just spend time with clients, with prospects, with professional connections. That's one way of doing it. And then, of course, whatever you do on that front, perhaps what you can do is diarize blocks of time during the year that allow you to give back. And that might be financial literacy sessions. Well, you won't be able to pop into a school just nilly-willy. Right. First, you need to build a relationship with a school. They probably need to do DBS checks and things. This all takes time. And then typically when you're delivering financial literacy sessions, especially at that A-level stage, it typically is after their exams. Right. So you're going to have like a window of 1 or 2 weeks within the year that A-level students have completed their exams and they're still at school. They haven't broken off for summer or something. So that's when the teachers or the head teacher or whatever wants you in. Okay, you can block that time in advance. Another example of this is we see a lot of financial planning professionals around the country signing up to and contributing to the CISI's Financial Planning Week, right? And that, again, is 1 week in the year in which they essentially open their lines to people giving them a call, not getting regulated advice, but being able to have a chat and get some guidance with a local professional that does this for a living, right? And the feedback we get within the CISI from the financial planning community that sign up and are sort of a part of Financial Planning Week is exactly what you said, Brian. They feel fulfilled. They feel, gosh, that felt great to be able to answer a query or stop someone from making this decision from a knee-jerk reaction perspective. Just pointing them to even a government service that would allow them to get the information they need to be able to know what their state pension is going to be or whatever it is. Sometimes it's stuff that is super simple, but you feel this sense of pride and fulfillment having helped another human being in that way with something that and you know in a way that's less noisy than they know. And so I think everyone, especially folks that are running even small, profitable professional practices, providing they can block that time and be mindful of when they would be needed. I mean, even that, again, a bunch of little ripples create a massive wave. And it's a win-win. Again, it's a win for the population at large. It's a win for the person doing it because if nothing else, you feel great about it. So I would definitely encourage the folks listening to just do their research, have a look at how their professional body of choice can help them and what are these sort of financial planning weeks sort of initiatives that are available out there during the year, and just get signed up and get your team signed up, especially the younger members of your team who, don't forget, they're coming in with a lot of energy. They're coming in with hunger to be able to grow professionally. And this sort of stuff makes them feel great to be part of your firm and deliver this social value in a way that just an investment or an algorithm never could.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to take the conversation back a step there, we talked about technology and we haven't actually touched on the buzz of AI there. You mentioned something, and we were talking before we hit record here, about the need for having those guardrails, the train tracks to build on. And I think that's really important. And I want to get your take on it because AI is very much there and very accessible at the moment. What do you think is important? And you've gone on a journey of building your own technology, which I know from having conversations with business owners who've gone down the path of buy versus build. Build is very desirable because it's, very much to what you want, but there comes with a lot of disadvantages. Cost and time is, two big ones, but also comes with governance as well around the building element. And so with AI, it's incredibly clever. It can do far more than I think a lot of people realize. You've mentioned those train tracks. You mentioned the guardrails. Give me your take on why it's just important that you define those processes before you get gung-ho on AI.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, Ryan. And the answer is pretty simple because we've seen this internally. We've just felt it ourselves. So the first thing you're going to notice when you start implementing AI into your business is that bad processes get augmented really fast. right? Bottlenecks in your business where perhaps you suddenly find out that that one process that is applicable to 100 clients solely depends on you turning a knob on Monday. And that is a massive business risk that for some reason you lived with and didn't realize. You throw AI at it and you just see it in black and white smacking you in the face. And so that's a positive, by the way, but it's only a positive if you're going to do something about it, right? Because it requires you to rethink a lot of processes. It requires you to rethink those train tracks in which your business is running. And that's work. That's hard work, right? And so I think it's important that firstly, one has their business processes documented, and then you can go through it and see at what points here could we become more efficient, and that efficiency being using artificial intelligence in one shape or form, right? And so slowly you might discover that maybe having someone in the meeting room with you to take notes from a client meeting is less valuable and less efficient than having a robust note taker that you can, with the client's agreement, have present in the meeting that gathers what was discussed and can help you transcribe that and can help you eventually put that in the form of a follow-up email or even a suitability letter for a client. And so that sounds amazing, doesn't it, Ryan? I mean, you say it, you go, oh, great. That means, Joe or Jane doesn't need to be in that room anymore. They can be doing something else in the business and I can go and do this. Well, great. Try it out. And then you try it out and you think, well, hang on a second. I cannot find a tool that does this in a way that suits the follow-up email that I do, or that suits the suitability letter. My suitability letter is super special. It has to be my way. Okay, great. Well, now you found the bottleneck. So you've customized your business processes to such an extent that you can't find an off-the-shelf tool that actually supports you in doing what you do. So you've got to reverse engineer this. You've got to start thinking, wait a minute, what bits of my process should I perhaps be less precious about? Maybe that customization that I have today, the way I do this today, is serving my ego more than delivering massive value to clients. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. And so what do I need to re-engineer? What other things do I need to bring into my business so that then I can go again and put AI through it? But the AI note taker in that example we're going through today, it's linked to other things that it understands and it can pre-populate and it can actually help me in creating those efficiencies that I'm looking for in the first place. So I think it's amazing what we see from AI today. No doubt it's only going to get better, but it does require you to do the reps, do the hard yards, and figure out the things that you need to change to even implement AI successfully in the first place. And that is no walk in the park. I say this from experience. We run a pretty successful business by pretty much all metrics. And I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm just saying this to impress upon you that it wasn't easy getting here. Like, it was far from easy getting the practice to where it is today. It requires a lot of rethinking along the way and a lot of putting your own ego, your own wants and needs and things in check and going, wait, actually, is this just me? Like, maybe this is just a me thing. And I always need to be thinking about the business as an entity that's going to be around for the long term to serve our clients and actually delivering massive value to our clients. Those two things need to come first. What pleases me necessarily might be secondary to that first purpose.
I totally agree with you. And I've also gone through that journey recently, and the painful journey that comes with it as well, where when for us, we literally changed our whole CRM system. And I had to say to the team, every single process in this business that exists is liable to change. And I will rip up the paper and change it should it need to. There are a lot of processes that are there for very good reasons, but that was also very, very good reasons because that's how the business operated. And so we very much had to apply a lot of critical thinking over a very short space of time, because every decision had a knock-on effect of about 3 to 5 additional decisions. And that was quite a painful journey in itself, but was right. This is how we're suggesting of doing it now. Is this appropriate? Does it give us the right outcomes? Are we happy with how we would then be perceived? Should we do it in this way? And then also, what's the knock-on effects? But the AI is not going to solve the problem. Only you're going to solve the problem. And as you said, it actually highlights the problem often. It's whether you choose to turn a blind eye to it or not. And then that's your reputation you're risking.
That's it. That's exactly it. And so I think it's something to embrace. Technology, advances in technology, business efficiencies, for sure. It's something worth embracing big time. Just know that it's going to take some work. But when you get to the other side of it, and then obviously you get to the other side of it, there's something else that you need to think about again. So it's an ever changing journey. But every time you get to the other side of that transition, that decision, that change, at least we have found that our business is in better shape. Our clients are better served. Our team members are happier and more efficient in the sense of they're feeling they've got more time to be creative and be those humans in our clients' lives rather than doing necessarily the sort of back office number crunching that traditionally was purely done manually for some reason.
I totally agree. I think this is a lovely place for us to end. We've covered a lot of ground, some really fantastic takeaway messages to our audience, and some takeaway messages that I'll take away myself, and some things I was aware of and been reminded about, some things I've learned along the way. So really appreciate your time for sitting down and having this recording. We'll make sure there's some fantastic links in the description box below so people can follow up and look at the content you've been involved in, should they wish to do so. But also, guys, hopefully you've liked the value that we've added here today, and please do subscribe so you can watch other episodes and future episodes we've got coming out. So thank you, Amyr, very much, and thank you to you guys also for listening and watching.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. And I appreciate you putting this show on the air for our whole professional community to be able to be getting some great content from great planners, great business owners, great professionals in our sector. And again, just rising the tide so that, all boats are lifted. And again, we're better able to serve more people in better ways. So thank you.
Thank you. That's really appreciated.